You've worked hard for your money, but do you know how to make it work hard for you? You need a team with experience, vigilance, and a strategy to help you live the retirement you deserve. Find your financial safe haven with Haven Financial Group today. You're listening to the new and improved Haven Financial Group radio show, where we bring you comprehensive weekly financial wisdom from the professionals. It's all about helping you solve retirement problems so you can make your nest egg last. You're tuned to the Haven Financial Group radio show with your host, Larry Kolvig and Kim Carrigan, your guides to weekly retirement confidence. If you're interested in protecting and growing what you have, let us be your financial safe haven. The phone lines are always open at 612-504-8400. Now, get your financial questions ready because the Haven Financial Group radio show starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the Haven Financial Group radio show. Thanks for being with us this morning. Every week we come to you and talk about retirement. Give us a call at 612-504-8400. We're always havenfinancialgroup.com. Great tools there, our events that are coming up, our classes. Again, Kim, great to be with you. And again, all the listeners as well. We appreciate it.
Well, it's so nice to be with you. And before we started this morning, we were just sort of recapping last week's show and how delightful that was to have your beautiful wife with us and to hear the story of Haven Financial. I really, really enjoyed that. And I feel confident that the listeners really enjoyed it as well.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, they got to see a different side of, kind of me being side by side by my wife. I was quite intrigued by, she actually had a pretty good filter because sometimes she doesn't necessarily have that. But you could probably tell Rochelle is the people person. She loves people and it shows on a daily basis at our office.
Well, I want you to know that I think what really showed is just that this is a warm, family-friendly kind of place. And that is so important when people are going, to somebody to turn their retirement over and to talk about the things that are so important, the things that they've worked all their lives for. So I know that you made people feel comfortable. I know you do that on a daily basis. And Rochelle certainly is a big part of that. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. This week, we're going to talk about retirement insight for Gen X. So, Larry, you're a Gen Xer.
Yes, I am.
So people at home may be going, well, and what am I? So Generation X would be someone who was born between 1964 and 1980. And I would imagine that probably is a big chunk of the audience who is listening this morning.
I bet it is. That's interesting because for the longest part during my career, we work a lot with the baby boomer generation.
Sure.
And now we are seeing these Gen Xers definitely more than ever. And yeah, I fit right in the middle of that. So, and now I know I'm a Gen Xer because I never knew what those dates were until you just told me.
There you go. So you can add that to your resume. You're also a Gen Xer. There you have it. Well, I think it's important to talk about this because we are talking about, these are people who are just about to approach 60 on the low end of it, but are certainly in the midst of their 40s and their 50s. And so, this is the time, Larry, I know you say it should be from the time you take your first job, but I mean, this is the time that, people start to get their kids sort of settled and they begin to look to the future. And it's a time I know that is important to maybe start sitting down and making some real plans.
Yeah, in a perfect world, even though if we're far from it, maybe the kids are off payroll. I'm not sure what age that is, but our daughters are still on payroll. And now maybe there's a little bit more disposable income. You scrape by, did the best you could in saving in those retirement accounts thus far. And then you get to this point where now we have catch-up contribution limits. We can add a little bit more to those retirement accounts. And hopefully we can just pad that retirement in these very, very important years.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today as a whole. First off, we're going to talk about those retirement accounts and how important it is that you not ignore them. We're going to get some really great advice here from Larry. Then replacing the benefits of a pension. We talk about this pretty frequently here on the show. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, you're lucky enough. But a lot of people, unfortunately, do not have pensions anymore. So we'll talk about how you can replace that idea. Then Glenn Ramey's going to come in and join us. Glenn is the healthcare expert at Haven Financial. He's going to talk to us a little bit about healthcare planning and how important it is to start thinking about that as a Gen Xer. And for that matter, anybody who's thinking about retirement sooner be thinking about that sooner rather than later. And then finally, unique retirement tips for all of those Gen Xers out there. So let's start, Larry, with this whole idea of not ignoring your retirement account. Um, I think that where we start with that is just the idea that you really, if you have an opportunity to get involved in a retirement account, do it.
Yeah, you're missing an opportunity if you don't. And obviously, we encourage at a younger age, starting somewhere to get to somewhere, even if it's a little bit, maybe increase that percentage as much as you possibly can, because the power of compounding is so powerful. So if you have these plans available at work, and specifically if they're matching, you don't want to miss these opportunities. Now, coming with that, those employer plans, you have more wiggle room. You could put more money in. Whereas if you're just looking at contributions on your own, take advantage of that if it makes sense as well. But depending on age, right now, if you're over 50, you can add about up to $7,000 a year in contributions to those IRAs or Roth IRAs. And, it all boils down, as we talk weekly, Kim, about taxes. Make sure it fits into your tax plan. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just assume that the pre-tax is where it all should go. Maybe that is the case. Maybe it's not the case. But it's why we talk through these things. But again, start saving, max it out the best you can, and you'll be very happy you did in those latter years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the earlier you can get on that, the better. Let's talk a little bit about, you just mentioned, IRAs and 401ks. There's traditional and there's Roth forms. Talk to us about what the difference between the two are.
Yeah, and nowadays with 401ks, I would say a big percentage of those employer plans, whether they're 403b, 401k, thrift savings plan, deferred comp, they're all type of employer plans. Now, most of those now all have Roth options. So the traditional is the pre-tax, where you get the tax benefit up front, where the Roth is after tax, but you get the benefit of never being taxed again years from now when you start drawing on it, or if legacy is important, those monies will go tax-free to your beneficiary. So again, weighing the tax ramifications, what makes sense, and then again, oftentimes having a little bit different recipe in those types of accounts. In Roth accounts, oftentimes many people will take a little bit more risk because it's more of a longer term. Mm-hmm. And then you also want to use different types of holdings within IRAs and brokerage accounts that have different tax effects. There's a strategy behind the tax piece as much as there is the recipe for the types of investments, asset classes, and that type of thing. So you don't have to be the expert, but that's where we come into play. Even those that we don't, work with their 401ks, our investment team, we offer advice. We'll help, we'll give them advice based upon their menu or the recipe that they have in their plans. And many times they're limited to those investments only. We'll give them sound advice as to, what we recommend. And, don't take the easy approach. Sometimes it's easy to just take the target dated funds that were created for simplicity reasons. Mm-hmm. Those are not always the best investment options. They're oftentimes cookie cutter, milk down versions of stocks and bonds. And you really want to get the right asset location, depending upon age, depending upon the element of time, and how close you are to retirement. All those are factors that we want to make sure we're bringing to the forefront.
Sure, absolutely. Now, if you are a Gen Xer, so again, just for those of you who maybe are just joining us, we're talking about the generation that was born after 1964 and up to 1980. So we're talking about folks who are ranging, in their 40s, their 50s at this point, everybody under 60. Those younger years, it's okay to be a little more aggressive in some of those retirement accounts, right?
Oh, it is. And when we look at the big picture, I ask them, how much of your total retirement investments do you want to gamble with in the market, and how much do you want to protect? They tell me, we implement the strategy. It sounds simple, not always the case. But the problem is most people don't know how much risk they are taking. And that can be a recipe for a major problem if the timing's not right. We call that stress testing your portfolio, being aware of it beforehand, before something negatively happens in the market. And then I strongly encourage people, hear the word rebalancing. Rebalancing, I call that just a tune-up for your investments. As there's volatility up and down and sideways, we really want to go in and rebalance, take advantage of the downturns as much as the upturns to make sure that you're in the right lane as far as a risk model, and you're not getting too much or too less of risk. You want to maximize those gains to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. So, folks, what we're talking about here today, if you missed the top of the show, we're looking sort of at Gen Xers and why they may be a little different right now, because they're maybe not in retirement, but certainly should be in those planning years. So we're talking specifically to Gen Xers. Certainly that doesn't mean that this doesn't apply, Larry, across the board. This is to baby boomers, and this is to Gen Z. This is to anybody who's out there in the working world right now. Planning retirement is important, and these retirement accounts are important the minute you have an opportunity to get in. But specifically today, we're talking to our Gen Xers out there. If you have some questions, maybe your portfolio needs some balancing, or maybe you don't have a portfolio yet and you're ready. You know that the time has come. You sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Give Haven Financial Group a call at 612-504-8400. The number again is 612-504-8400. Set up a free consultation. Head in and talk with members of the team about what you're planning for your retirement and how you can get there. As Larry frequently says, you don't want to just survive in retirement. You want to thrive. And the best way to do that is to start planning now. It's havenfinancialgroup.com. Larry, when we come back, let's talk more about Gen Xers and the idea of replacing pensions. This is sort of that generation that has, no pension, right? This is part of the first group where pensions started to disappear. So we'll talk about that when we come back right here on the Haven Financial Group radio show.
Don't go too far. We're gathering more important insights and retirement wisdom. The Haven Financial Group radio show will be right back. Stick around. You've got questions, we've got answers. You're tuned to the Haven Financial Group radio show with your host, Larry Kolvig and Kim Carrigan. Now, back to the show.
Good morning and welcome back to the Haven Financial Group radio show. Feel free to give us a call at 612-504-8400 or havenfinancialgroup.com. Check out our classes upcoming. We encourage anybody that's interested in education in any of these retirement areas to come out. All of our classes are no cost and they are educational because there's always questions on how do you learn? I say, do you remember all those classes growing up that taught you how to make all the perfect retirement decisions? Most would say absolutely not. That's why we do them. That's why we do them, Kim.
Why is it that we paid so much for our kids' educations and not one of them got a class like that, right?
So true. So sad, but true.
Let's talk a little bit about replacing the benefit of a pension, because really, I think there's not all that many people who are under the age of 60 who have a pension. And if you do, it's terrific and good for you. You're very lucky. But for some, that's never been an opportunity. It's never been an option. So let's talk about, Larry, when somebody comes in and they sit down with you and they say, Larry, I've got Social Security, I've got a couple of retirement accounts, and that's it. I don't have a pension. How do I begin to develop that?
Yeah, in all of our meetings, I say through our proprietary process, the discovery meeting is where we're going to ask tons of questions. Where's your income sources? Is it, to Social Security? Do you have pensions, retirement assets? And that gets into all the things like estate planning and taxes and all those things too. But you're right, a very big percentage today do not have pensions, which for years, that was the retirement plan that companies offered. You work for a company for a long period of time. They took care of you. It provides retirement income to these retirees. It was part of their employee benefits, and it was a major part of the retirement formula. And it was for years, and it really benefited those that continued to work, and it was and those that took care of their companies, the companies took care of them. Well, eventually that was removed or taken the place of by 401ks. Again, again, since 1980, 401ks have replaced pensions. So as the early 80s, pensions kind of fell by the wayside. Now there's listeners that have pensions, you're going to like them. But now it was really on the employee to put money away, take the risk off of the actual company on the pension side of it. And then now the employees need to put their money away in these plans. Society has put a lot of money in these types of plans, and that's great. But there's a lot of people, when you put the responsibility on individuals, oftentimes that falls by the wayside. And that's why a lot of people don't have, a real good retirement. So that shift from pensions to 401k plans, it really helped companies, but it also put the risk on the individuals themselves. So the consequences being, not everybody has done a good job at it. Others have done a great job at it. But again, it's just the way history has been drawn up between the pensions and now the 401ks.
Absolutely. So let's say, Larry, when somebody comes in and they say, I have no pension and I have a 401k, but I don't have a lot of money in it. I've got some other assets out there. How do you sort of put together an income plan for that individual without the pension? What do you do and what do you suggest?
Yeah,
I'm thinking about annuities specifically, actually, to be honest.
That's actually a really good question. In this conversation, we're also going to identify their expenses now and what they might be in retirement. And, between the Social Security and any other income streams, what's the difference? How much do we need to make up on a monthly basis? So we'll either start drawing that in the most tax efficient way from their portfolios, that being different types of investments, or a good way to do it for a lot of people, and it's not for everybody, is, you mentioned it, annuities. It's a good way for some people to guarantee that they're not going to outlive their income, where we may take a portion of their retirement funds, if appropriate, and these insurance companies, because all annuities are through insurance companies. A lot of listeners might not know that all annuities, by the way, when I say all, there's 4 types and they're not all created equal: variable, immediate, fixed, and fixed index. But they're all through insurance companies. Well, we may like to dislike insurance companies for whatever reason, but they're the only ones that can guarantee a future income stream for life. They're the only ones. Your portfolio can't do it. We manage with Schwab and Fidelity and Vanguard and others, but insurance companies can. So it's possible, and we help people do this if appropriate, to secure some of their money and guarantee X amount of dollars based on whatever they put in there for the rest of their life. Now, make sure you work with somebody that explains this. For many, including me, because my wife and I will not have pensions, that can be a very effective tool if you're looking to plan, whether 5 years, 10 years, God willing, 20 years, on what that income. So guaranteed income compared to variable income. There's a variety of ways to do it. And then it all comes back to being tax efficient, because I've said it before, Kim, I've asked the question for years, what's the hardest thing for people when they retire? And they say, not getting a paycheck anymore. We send millions of dollars of retirement income the 1st and 15th of every month, because we have a lot of retirees that need income. Income is the name of the game. We always put the stress on how big is your portfolio. I would say it'd probably be better served to say, how much of your income is guaranteed? Income, I think, is more important.
Sure, absolutely. So this is one of the many things that when somebody comes in to Haven Financial Group, you sit down with them and you try to walk them through this and find these ways. That would be something that, as a layperson like myself, I would not know how to put together an income like that.
And most won't. And most forget the tax piece. Is it best to draw off your liquid money, savings, checking, money market, high yield savings? Remember, we encourage people to keep a good amount liquid. You don't want to draw that now where you don't have liquidity. And I see a lot of problems struggling in that area, and that's problematic. It's not good to go in retirement without liquidity. And then a lot of folks just have all at risk in the market and nothing protected. another recipe for a problem. But then the tax piece, you just start drawing off whatever you think. No taxes. And by the way, it's fourth quarter. I encourage folks, make sure you're tax planning and not just getting taxes prepared. Yes, get them prepared, but make sure you're planning and drawing off the right accounts. Right now, we're doing a lot of Roth conversions, and many people have not looked at it. They think it's only for rich people. It could not be further from the truth, because I'll remind listeners, these tax brackets are going to expire the end of next year. If you're not filling up the 12% ordinary income tax bracket, for many people, they're making a grave mistake, whether it's a little bit or a lot. We don't want unforced errors or missed opportunities simply because nobody took the time to explain or help you understand why it makes sense or why it doesn't make sense.
So let's give the telephone number, shall we? The number for Haven Financial Group is 612-504-8400. You call that number, tell them you heard us here on the radio and that you'd like to come in and just sit down for a consultation. You're hearing about a lot of things that, as I said just a moment ago, as someone who has never retired before and hopes to only retire once, these are things that it's understandable that you have questions and that you'd like to speak to an expert about. And that's what you get when you walk through the doors at Haven Financial. Again, it's 612-504-8400. You can also go to their website, havenfinancialgroup.com. And there you can learn more about some of their educational seminars that are coming up in the next couple of months, how to sign up to answer some of your questions, and much more information about Haven Financial Group. So Larry, when we come back, we are going to be joined by Glenn Ramey, who in your office takes care, he and others take care of a lot of the healthcare issues. This is an important time of the year to be talking about healthcare. Tell everybody why that's the case.
Extremely important. It's annual enrollment for Medicare, where people have the opportunities to look at other options if it makes sense. You know, as humans, we get very complacent, and you have the same company for X amount of years and you don't look at potentially other options. There's a lot of changes to Medicare. We're going to have Glenn on here shortly. Everybody, in my opinion, should go out and look at the open market during this annual enrollment. You might not make changes, but how do you know if you're not having these conversations?
Sure.
Again, Glenn and Isabella, we help lots of people navigate the healthcare field because it can get very, very complicated. So this is very important times with all the changes.
Absolutely. So again, we're talking to our Gen Xers today, but we're talking to everybody. You know, retirement planning, it's starting to creep up on the Gen Xers, and maybe some of you baby boomers are right on the cusp, and this is important information for you as well. So be sure you stay with us right here. 612-504-8400. That's the number. You're listening to the Haven Financial Group Radio Show.
Ready to find your financial safe haven? Your dream retirement is in reach. Don't go away. The Haven Financial Group Radio Show will be right back. Are you worried that your financial strategy might be missing something? Well, you're in the right place. Larry Kalvig is back and ready to help you find your financial safe haven.
Good morning, and welcome back to the Haven Financial Group Radio Show. I'm Larry Kalvig, founder and CEO of the Haven Financial Group. Thanks for listening. Feel free to give us a call at 612-504-8400 or havenfinancialgroup.com. Kim, it's a big time of the year. It's annual enrollment, Medicare. It's great to have Glenn Ramey, our expert in-house, in addition to Isabella. And great to have Glenn, and let's talk healthcare.
Let's do just that. You know, Glenn, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. Great to see you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We were kind of talking about, you know, the fact that Gen Xers, you know, they're really starting to think about their retirement. And so this enrollment period right now, that's very important to maybe some of our baby boomers who are already in the system, but Gen Xers, they're thinking about it very seriously. So let's just talk first about them, because what I think is interesting is that people who were born between 1964 and 1980, you know, late 50s, in their 40s, these folks are expected to live longer. And so that's going to have a real impact on their healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. The old adage, we practice medicine, right? We haven't perfected it yet. So new medications, new surgeries, new technology is coming out, and all that is going to mean longer lifespans for us Gen Xers. Absolutely.
So what might be different for Gen Xers when it comes to healthcare and retirement than maybe the generation before them, the baby boomers?
Well, again, expecting to be on that insurance program for a much longer period of time, and the risk of long-term care needs becomes more significant the longer we live, right? It's now not just family history that boils down into whether or not we'll have a long-term care event. It's just living longer. One staggering statistic I can share with you is a condition like Alzheimer's. At 65, 1 in 10 people will be diagnosed with that. At age 90, 1 in 2. 50% of that population is suffering from some form of cognitive decline, right? So these longer lifespans don't necessarily mean 100% healthy living that whole time.
All right. So now that you've given us all this great news,
Of course, yeah. Always the bear, yep.
oh, but right, that is your job. So you're doing a fine job at it. Let's talk about how important it is for people to start planning sooner rather than later with these kinds of ideas in mind.
Yeah, so the insurance industry would tell us that our 50s is the right time to start having that long-term care conversation about what we will be doing and how we'll be funding that care. And there's two reasons why they're going to make that recommendation to us. The first is cost, right? The younger we are, the less costly it is to have and maintain that type of insurance. But more importantly, it's a health underwritten option, meaning that health history, things that are in our health, could interfere with our ability to qualify for those types of coverages. So they estimate in our 50s, we haven't yet had many of those major health occurrences that could interfere. And if we choose to try to wait till within our 60s to try to plan, we're now increasing that likelihood that there's something in our health that is either making it more expensive to plan for long-term care, or it could even limit our options because we don't qualify for those long-term care plans.
So walk us through, Glenn. I come in and I sit down with you, and I'm with my husband, and he and I are 55 years old, and we want to make sure we're in perfect health, but we want to make sure that we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, if you will.
Sure. So I'll say there's several factors that I would look into. First off would be obviously budget and expendable income in retirement. How much of that cost can we handle ourselves, and how much do we want to insure against? Are we saved appropriately but not well enough to cover long-term care? So we're concerned about preserving our assets. That might dictate a financial vehicle for long-term care planning that's going to protect the money we have if we still have to have the state assist us in paying for cost. Otherwise, on the other end of that spectrum, if we're really good savers, there's long-term care options that don't even have premiums that we have to pay, but just require we set aside some of our own money for later, and they'll leverage that money against those long-term care events for us through something like a long-term care annuity.
It's a very expensive prospect, though.
It is, but we're talking about a lot of cost, right? So there are some averages as of today for you. It's currently 10,000 median cost in my state for a nursing home, long-term care facility. It's 120,000 per year in cost. Where average stay in a long-term care facility is 3 years. That's 360,000 in cost. That has a 50% likelihood of happening to us based on the long-term care statistics. Now, if I put a modest 3% growth on that cost and project that out over 20 years, you can double those numbers I just gave you.
Mm. All right, let's talk about healthcare in general, and most specifically, maybe folks who Larry and I talked about a little bit at the end of the last segment. People who maybe are already on a healthcare plan. This time of year is especially important. Walk us through some of the steps that people need to take if they're already on Medicare, but of course, open enrollment is now.
Yeah, so this year, as I say, a real transitional year for Medicare. For the first time in Medicare's history, there is now an out-of-pocket limit placed on prescription drug plans in Medicare. Every plan out there is now going to have a $2,000 out-of-pocket cap. And this has meant adjustments to plan formularies, adjustments to benefits. Heck, in our state, we had 21 drug plans last year. We now have 14 for consumers next year. So there's been a consolidation in available options as well. well. So today I'm taking clients through first their medication coverage. Is there a way to save them money or make sure that their current plan is going to cover their meds? And if not, switching them over to one that will. And then since all these other things are happening, benefit designs are changing, doctor networks are changing. I know there's a lot of news right now about insurance companies losing providers out of their provider network. And that isn't just a state specific problem, that's happening all across the country. So unlike normal years where someone could have been complacent on their Medicare and been okay, this is one of those years you really need to pay attention to.
And how specific to the state you live in are some of these, some of these coverages?
Almost all of it, right? So you're always going to buy insurance out of the state that you live in initially. So your very first purchase in Medicare is always going to be where you're residing out of. And then as you move, many Medicare plans are zip code specific. So it's not even a move to a new state, but maybe I was in a metro area and I moved to a more country area now to enjoy my retirement years. And I'm in a zip code now where my current plan isn't offered. I'd be required to change to a new plan, and that's offered in that area.
I feel like this could be very overwhelming for people.
I would agree with you. Many people will say that when talking with me, that this all seems extremely overwhelming. And I would say, just know that there's professionals like me out there in your area that are looking to help you. We don't cost anything. We're compensated by insurance companies to help you enroll. So we're not looking to get a fee charged. We just want to help people understand their options and make good decisions.
And tell us, Glenn, I'm seeing it on TV constantly, call this number, and it all sounds great and fine. But that's not necessarily the case. And what is the deadline here?
So the deadline is December 7th for Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans. It started on October 15th and goes all the way through December 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how quickly do you need to get it taken care of?
I'd say as early as possible. Again, considering this time of year is, as I said, a really transitional one. Many like myself are very busy trying to help our existing clientele and new ones transition. So I would encourage you to reach out to your person or reach out to us ASAP to get booked so you have an appropriate time on your calendar to get that done before the deadline's over.
Glenn, do you need to take a different approach if this is the first year you're getting in?
Yes, I'd say the first year is the most important decision you're making in Medicare, right? Because some of these options might be a lifetime decision for you. It's really important to make that first one the right one.
Okay, so what are some of the decisions you're trying to make?
Yeah, so it's that first choice between whether I want to do a Medicare Advantage plan, also called Part C by Medicare, or a Medicare Supplement plan, also referred to as a Medigap policy. And it's that second one that I give the warning to, is this option's only guaranteed to us within that first 6 months of signing up for Part B of Medicare. And if we did not choose that option within that time frame, we're now underwritten in the future to have it. If a client approached me and said, Glenn, which plan in Medicare pays the medical bills the most and leaves me responsible for the smallest dollar amount out of my pocket to have my medical bills covered, it's going to be the supplement plan. But we can't wait until we're sick to have it, right? That's that one that if we don't do when we're first signing up for Medicare, we might never have the right to have that as an option for our healthcare. So again, that first decision, so important.
Okay, so give us some age, let's understand the ages here and when we need to be making these very important decisions.
Yeah. So for most consumers, Medicare is going to start at age 65. The birth month that we are born in will be the starting date, the first of that month. With one exception, if we're born on the 1st, we get to start that plan a month early. And Medicare is going to give us a 7-month enrollment window, 3 months before that month and 3 months after it, to get all of my Medicare in order. Otherwise, it would require being on Social Security disability for 24 months or having certain conditions like ALS or kidney failure that could qualify for someone for Medicare at any age.
All right. So now, for those of you listening, if this sounds overwhelming, you just heard Glenn say it can be overwhelming. There's no two ways about it. And Larry, I think you would agree with that. I mean, this is quite a process.
My head still spins every time I hear Glenn talk. And for the listeners, it may not be fun to look forward to a time in life when, healthcare will be a large expense for you, but planning carefully now for those expenses, your options that are out there, how are you going to afford those costs? Now is more than ever is planning coming into effect, maintaining your health, increasing your quality of life. If your head is spinning regarding healthcare, long-term care, these are not fun discussions, but they're important discussions. So give us a call. Your situation may be unique just to you. We hear all kinds of situations, but creating a strategy that best goes together with the rest of your retirement plan. I always say all the retirement puzzle pieces, retirement more than ever, those should be coordinated. They should be working together. And no doubt, healthcare and long term care should be part of a retirement plan.
612-504-8400. That's the number. If you'd like to go in, sit down with Glenn and talk a little bit more about some of what we have just kind of scratched the surface about here on the show this morning, please give them a call. It's 612-504-8400. You can go to havenfinancialgroup.com. Glenn, it's always a pleasure. I'm so glad that you stopped by and helped us out.
Mine as well, Kim. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, terrific. Larry, when we come back, let's talk a little bit about the unique retirement tips that you have for these Gen Xers. This is the Haven Financial Group Radio Show.
Don't go too far. We're gathering more important insights and retirement wisdom. The Haven Financial Group Radio Show will be right back. Stick around. You've got questions, we've got answers. You're tuned to the Haven Financial Group Radio Show with your host, Larry Kolvig and Kim Carrigan. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Haven Financial Group Radio Show. I'm Larry Kolvig, founder and CEO of the Haven Financial Group. Thanks for listening. Give us a call at 612-504-8400 or havenfinancialgroup.com. A great website, a lot of communication there, a lot of tools, a lot of classes coming up here fourth quarter. So check us out there. And again, Kim, we're talking to the Gen Xers, but really all the generations that are listening, because retirement may sound like it's so far away and next thing you know, it's here. So it's important to get started early, but you don't just set it in stone and leave it. This is an ongoing, or should be an ongoing discussion.
Absolutely. So, you're so right. We sort of tailored this show toward Gen Xers, but I think there are nuggets in here that are imperative for those who are already in retirement, those young people who are out there thinking, wow, should I get into this 401k? That's money out of my budget each month, and I'm not making that much money. Well, the answer you've already heard from Larry is yes, get in, get in now. And then those who are really getting a little bit closer and maybe you've started to sketch out a portfolio and you need some help. We're kind of just addressing all of those age groups. Let's talk, though, about some of the unique tips that you have for people when they start to, think about and they're starting to head into those retirement years. And let's start with creating a comprehensive retirement budget. I mean, that's got to be number one on the list.
It is. It all starts with what I call our discovery meeting. You get to know us. We get to know you, your family, your situation, your story. That's important. Where you want to go in retirement, what's the timeline of it? Is there going to be lifestyle changes? What are your goals and objectives? And really boiling down expenses, both now and future. And when we say that, a lot of times people will throw a number out and then realize that was way too low. When we do our comprehensive planning, or some might call it Monte Carlo projections, we're really looking 20, 30, 35 years out. Retirement can be a third of your life potentially.
Sure.
Planning for the long run. Big questions. Do I have enough to retire? Will I run out at 75 or 95? So when we factor in expenses, we also factor in inflation. The last 3 years we've been talking and how inflation's changed people's budget. It's hurt their savings plans. So we factor in big ticket items, a car 5 years from now, what's your travel budget. We want to include everything in this planning process. It doesn't do any good to have unrealistic numbers or unrealistic expectations. We really want to review this and make changes because life happens quickly, and if your expenses go up or whatever that might be. So that's certainly part of our planning process.
Absolutely. Then I know you guys, and we talked about this earlier in the show, you explore retirement savings vehicles. You talk to people about what their options out there might be.
Yeah, we encourage people to look at all their options. When I say all of the options, from having good liquidity, savings checking, money market, high yield savings, whatever that may be, kind of more shorter term liquid accounts. And I always say there's a real problem there for a lot of people. And there's goals and benchmarks that we use. and then making sure you're not taking all the risk of the market, having a good understanding of, are you in a comfortable position, or are you exposed to too much, and having an understanding of that. And then really looking at all the other options. Are you maxing out HSAs? Though I will tell you that our opinion is the HSA is probably more important than Roth, just because it's tax free going in, it's tax free coming out, and you're going to have medical expenses that HSAs will probably really help you when you retire. So again, that's just one vehicle. And again, looking at, do you need to replace income? We talked earlier about using annuities for a guaranteed lifetime income. Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? The good thing is we have everything on the menu, and our job isn't to steer anybody any direction. It's to look at all the options, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and then also help people get an understanding of what they're paying. People should know what they're paying. There should be no surprises. And that's really where a partner like us really can help people out, hold them accountable, and continue to give people the number one, the education, but number two, I stress it often, the attention that people deserve and many people are not getting.
Sure. One of the things, Larry, as we've talked about, Gen Xers, and as we said, we sort of tailored this show for Gen Xers, but we haven't really pointed out one of the things that makes that generation really different. Yes, we did say they don't necessarily have pensions, and that's certainly important. But another thing about Gen Xers is that when they come and sit down with you, they are going to be dealing. They're a real sandwiched generation. They've got parents who are living longer because people are just living longer, and then they've got these young people who are sort of struggling to get on their feet. What are some of the things that you talk to future retirees about when it comes to being sandwiched in the middle?
It can be very difficult. You're right. Taking care of elderly parents and then also have kids still on the payroll. Unfortunately, some that get enabled and eat up people's retirement. It's a very big challenge. And we want to talk through those situations and develop a strategy, both now and future. How does that make sense? It's very, very challenging. I also want people, sometimes people, well, can I work in retirement? Well, maybe part-time work may be a good idea. Maybe easing into retirement is a good idea rather than just cold turkey. And I say that because we're in Minnesota, and I hear it so often that I wished I wouldn't have retired in the fall, because winter here, obviously, we know can be very, very long. I wish that I would have retired in the springtime. So just something I want to point out, because, we still have clients that go get part-time jobs. I can't tell you how many, of our clients or folks we sit with are going to volunteer, or they're golf rangers, or they're starters. Maybe that helps the free golf during the summer. Most people still have to have a purpose. The recliner 24 hours a day, probably not a good long-term health plan. So again, all of these things are so important. It's all encompassing in our conversations to talk through all of these. And again, that's where having a partner throughout this is extremely important.
Yeah, I think that baby boomers really, it's hard for baby boomers to retire because they've worked so hard all their lives and suddenly they don't know what to do with themselves. But I think Gen Xers are going to be that same way. Certainly the older portion of Gen X, they've been hard workers.
Oh, they have been. I was blessed to, be brought up on a farm. My parents still crop farm at 79 and 77. Thankfully, I got that work ethic. So people say, well, how long are you going to work, Larry? That is a big question mark. I think it'll be a long time, God willing. Yeah. But again, it's a lot of the same traits, I think, with the Gen Xers. Maybe some week we'll talk about those that are even way younger. Maybe not, Kim, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. But if I could just point out in closing, this is the end of the year, and there's some I want listeners to know, fourth quarter, there's certain things, there's timelines, and we're in the fourth quarter. Required minimum distributions, if they need to be taken, they all need to be taken really by the 1st of December, because you don't want to wait till the end of the year because you risk not getting them. So if RMDs or inherited RMDs, if you haven't, make sure that you're talking through that ahead of time. If you need to take any end of the year withdrawals, because you haven't filled the 12% bracket up, if it makes sense tax-wise. Don't wait till the middle of December because it's probably going to be too late. Roth conversions, don't miss that opportunity. You and I already talked about annual enrollment. Don't let human nature create complacency. And I just read a study that average American wastes over $1,000 a year on not being in the right healthcare plan. Yeah. So end of the year, and we initiate a lot of this at Haven Financial Group, but we don't want to leave these things to the last second. So I can't emphasize the timeline of these things. And before you know it, it'll be the holidays. And by that time, some of these things will be too late.
Absolutely. And our lives get crazy busy. And so you've heard it straight from Larry here, folks. You don't want to miss these deadlines. So if you're not sure which one of these deadlines, if any, or if all are important to you and your portfolio or what you have planned, give Haven Financial Group a call. It's 612-504-8400. And I really want to suggest that you do this pretty quickly because you just heard Larry say it. I mean, we're coming up on the end of the year here, and the folks at Haven are very busy as well. And we want to get you in there if at all possible. 612-504-8400. That is a number where you can set up a consultation. You can go to havenfinancialgroup.com, learn more about Haven and about some of those educational seminars that are coming up in the fourth quarter. 612-504-8400. This has been a great show, Larry. I wait to the very end to bring up something that's sort of a bad subject. I don't know what happened to the Vikings last weekend, and I'm very sorry. And I sat there watching, and all I could think about was you. I just want you to know that.
It was the first game I watched from the beginning to the end due to scheduling, and it was a heartbreaker. They gave it a good fight, but at the end of the day,
they're a great team.
They're still okay. I think we're going to be fine. Go Vikes. And give us a call at the Haven Financial Group. You have nothing to lose. Tie all those retirement puzzle pieces up. 612-504-8400 or havenfinancialgroup.com. Kim, great to be with you again.
Great to be with you. Have a great week.
Investment advisory service is offered through Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC. Haven Financial Group and Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC are not affiliated companies, and investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Please consult with a qualified financial advisor and or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. And comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams only refer to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company.